I just saw the movie Weapons, and it got me thinking, why do comedians make such good horror directors? Zach Cregger, Jordan Peele, Edgar Wright, and Sam Raimi are just a few that come to mind. Filmmakers who manage to generate laughs just as easily as they create unease and dread. So today I want to investigate, what skills do those directors possess that help them in both genres? What storytelling tools transfer from horror to comedy? Hi, my name is Tim, I write for television, and I'm telling you right now, this video contains a jump scare. Today I want to talk about my favorite joke of all time and how it's constructed. The joke is told by Norm Macdonald, and he told it on Conan O'Brien's show. Let's take a look.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office, right?
You are correct.
Now, you may not know where this joke is going, but you are familiar with the convention. A blank walks into a blank. You know there's going to be some wordplay or a clever connection between the two subjects. You are now actively anticipating the punchline.
The podiatrist's office says, "What's the problem?" And the moth says, "What's the problem? Where do I begin, man?" He goes, "I go to work for Gregory Olinovich, and all day long I work." Honestly, Doc, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't even know if Gregory Olinovich knows. He only knows that he has power over me, and that seems to bring him happiness. But I don't know. I wake up in a malaise, and I walk here and there.
Now we're advancing the situation. A depressed moth talking to a podiatrist. You may even be able to see the punchline coming at this point. It's all very familiar. You feel like maybe you've even heard this joke before. Only Norm is taking a little too long on the setup of this joke. He could have just said, "I'm depressed," and continued. And you can hear that the audience hasn't laughed in a while. They're confused. This isn't how the joke is supposed to go.
And this is the hardest pill to swallow, Doc. My other boy, Gregorio Ivanilidovich. I no longer love him. As much as it pains me to say, when I look in his eyes, all I see is the same cowardice that I catch when I take a glimpse of my own face in the mirror. If only the cowardice was stronger, then perhaps I could bring myself to reach over to that cocked and loaded gun that lays on the bedside behind me.
And now we see Norm Macdonald's brilliance. He has subverted expectations not by an unexpected punchline, but by extending the setup into absurdity. His delivery is perfect. The odd names, the extremely specific language, everything is meant to steer the audience away from the very obvious punchline, which makes them feel lost and delirious, which in turn opens the audience up to laugh at every stage of the joke, not just the punchline.
The doctor says, "Moth, man, you're troubled. But you should be seeing a psychiatrist. Why on earth did you come here?" And then the moth said, "Because the light was on."
Now I want to talk about my favorite scare from any horror movie. It's from The Ring. The opening of this movie shows a teenage girl who is getting extremely spooked. We got a story about a tape that kills you, very spooky appliances, a haunted TV. The film is conveying some fairly bog-standard scary movie conventions. We know what these things mean. The slow shots, the eerie sounds, the prolonged silences. A lingering shot of a wet door handle indicates that something is wrong, and also something is behind that door, and it's going to do horrible things to this teen. Only right when the scary stuff is about to happen, we get a little jumble of nonsense images and then cut to black. And then the movie just starts again. We don't even see what happens to that very spooked young woman until 8 minutes later. While the girl's mother is telling the main character about what she saw that night, in the middle of this conversation, in the kitchen,
I saw her face.
Well, bam! When I saw this in theaters, people straight up walked out after this shot. Why? because it's fiddling with the conventions. We are supposed to show the scary shot after the spooky lead-up. We're not supposed to be scared during a chat in the kitchen. There is an understood genre convention that scary things are supposed to happen in the scary part of the movie. But when you're doing exposition and setting up the plot, we're supposed to be safe. What this shot did was it told the audience that no scene is safe. The terror could hit you at any moment. This is another example of subverting expectations. Conventions are a promise, an agreement that the storyteller makes with their audience. We're used to the elements of genre fitting in a specific way. So when a director establishes the rules, but then breaks one of them just a little bit, it shocks us. Sometimes with delight, other times with horror. To subvert audience expectations, you can't just deny the audience what they expect. You have to do everything you promised and still find a way to surprise them. Look at the moth joke. It has everything the audience expects from a joke. It has the setup, it advances the scenario, and then there's the punchline. The Ring includes all the components of a scary scene: the setup, the jump scare, the gruesome end. Storytelling tricks like this can only be used if the storyteller understands what promises each genre is making to their audience. So it makes sense that The Ring was directed by Gore Verbinski, one of the undisputed masters of the visual joke. While Peele was working on the sketch comedy show Key and Peele, most of the jokes relied on very familiar and yet complex audience expectations. A scene where a cop confronts a killer in a hall of mirrors, a school for witchcraft and wizardry in the inner city, the lineup of football players that just keep saying their names. These scenes aren't necessarily masterpiece jokes like the moth joke, but their humor is mined from very specific conventions. And by trusting that the audience already understands what these conventions mean, Key and Peele were able to extract silly jokes. In the movie Us, a family is brutally murdered by a gang of killers who look just like them. The setup is terrifying, but to add to the horror, the killers don't seem to be taking this seriously.
Please stop.
Stopping. Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys.
Here, Peele includes an extended bit, a scene of pure comedy, but none of it generates a laugh. It only makes the situation more horrifying. Sam Raimi made one of my favorite horror movies of all time. He also made one of my favorite comedies of all time. They are the same movie, Evil Dead 2. How does he do this? By exploiting a very simple ambiguity. See, people falling over is funny. People getting slapped or stepping on a rake, it all gets a laugh. It's slapstick. And yet, people getting hurt is also horrific. It's scary and unsettling. Cutting off a limb is funny in one context and horrifying in another. Director Sam Raimi is such a master of both comedy and horror that he manages to infuse Evil Dead with the context of horror and comedy at the same time. He builds suspense with isolation and creeping dread, but then he diffuses it with Looney Tunes level violence. Here, a man severing his own hand is somehow both funny and horrifying. Zach Cregger got his start in the comedy sketch group The Whitest Kids You Know.
Look at you, you look great.
Thank
Man,
you.
what do you got there?
This is a gallon of PCP.
Wow!
Since leaving the comedy world, he has directed 2 horror films, Barbarian and Weapons. Both are really scary and really weird. But I want to return to this sketch. I think it perfectly encapsulates Cregger as a storyteller. The humor comes from building a totally ordinary world and then toppling it over with one incongruous element. It's funny, but it would be scary if you saw it in real life. Like a clown, funny in one context, terrifying in another. This sensibility has transferred over from his sketch comedy days to his work as a horror director. I think Cregger understands horror movies on a fundamental level. See, horror movies are a risk. Unlike superhero movies where you can go in with the comfortable expectation that the hero will win, horror movies don't give you that sense of assuredness. Horror is a unique genre because it's one of the few places where you can watch a movie where the villain kills all the main characters, and you just have to accept that possibility going in. What this produces is a unique kind of catharsis. If the heroes survive, the relief the audience feels is so much more satisfying because their survival was not guaranteed. What Cregger understands is that this moment of profound relief is the best time to tell a joke, because you'll never get a laugh quite as big as the laugh that accompanies relief. Honestly, comedy is a great tool for any storyteller to have. A key component to most stories is making the heroes likable, and a great, quick way to make someone likable is to make them funny. Being able to whip out genuinely funny comedy, if only for one scene, is a great tool to get the audience on the hero's side. And knowing when to stop telling jokes is another key skill that comedy writers have. Look at the Marvel movies. A common criticism I see of the Marvel franchise is that they're too quippy. No one takes anything seriously, and everyone is always telling little jokes, regardless of the scenario. And this is because the template for the Marvel Universe was set by Jon Favreau, a comedy director who knows how to tell jokes and when to be deathly serious. But not all directors have Favreau's instincts. Not all quips are made equal. When directors without comedy background attempt to mimic Favreau's style, the result is often a tonal mess, because they don't understand how comedy is used to support the story.
How long have you been at Kamatage, Mr.
Doctor.
Mr. Doctor?
It's strange.
Maybe. Who am I to judge?
This scene really throws me. It's funny, but why introduce the leader of a nihilist death cult with a who's on third joke? The comedy isn't serving the story. It doesn't set up the character. It's a joke at the expense of the movie. This is what happens when the studio mandates jokes and the director doesn't know how to tell them. Both comedy and horror share an interesting property. They are both stories that can be judged on an obvious bodily reaction. Horror is scary if it makes you feel scared. Comedy is funny if it makes you laugh. You can't fake it. The audience will know if it works right away, which is what makes these genres such a good litmus test for understanding the craft of talented storytellers. So get in the comments, let me know, what's your favorite scary comedy or funny horror? Have a happy Halloween. I'll see you next week.